Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is where you're at. Welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John Algetz, and with me, as always, is
Maggie Lovett.
I guess I shouldn't say as always with me because
No, you had
could
Perry
be somebody else.
yesterday.
I had Perry yesterday, but you're my regular, so you get the as always treatment. So today we're going to be talking about uh, Blade being rated R. We're going to talk about the Doctor Who Christmas special, probably bringing in uh, the next companion, so that's going to be a good time. But before that, we're going to talk about the Longest Yard remake. But before even that, we needed to give a shout out to Bear Dynamic for this wonderful microphones that we use every single day. This is the I have to actually read it because I have a bad memory. M70 Pro X. XLR microphone. It is wonderful. It is awesome. Highly recommend it. And I'm not just saying that because they sent us microphones. I'm saying that because I actually quite enjoy it. Fun fact about me, I have an audio production degree, so I've used a lot of microphones over the years, and I can tell you that this is a pretty solid one to go for if you're gonna do content creation or podcasting or whatever else. So with that all out of the way, Maggie, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I am very tired. You might notice that I'm in that period of tired where I'm almost delirious. Like I'm going to be talking
Mm.
really fast this episode
So
and
this is going to be
probably
a
a
really
lot.
fun episode, huh?
I'm hoping I'm trying to keep the energy up so I'm like hyping myself and I'm pumping myself up. Although I'm probably going to get a little annoyed here because we're going to be talking about The Longest Yard is getting another remake because I don't know, we need that apparently. It's been almost 20 years since the previous one with Adam Sandler, and it was about 30 years before that when we got the original with Burt Reynolds. So I guess we're kind of due for another one,
But
but
why? What is it about the longest yard that demands every 20 to 30 years we get a remake of it? Maybe it's because I'm not a sports person. Sports ball and I were not friends, but I don't understand why we couldn't have a new sports ball movie with like a new plot and a new story and something, different.
I will say I enjoy The Longest Yard. I enjoy the original more than I do the Adam Sandler one, but I do like both of them. But I am kind of with you in that, like, why do we need another one? Although I guess you could ask the same thing of movies like A Star Is Born and all these
Exactly
other
where my
movies that
mind
have
was
had
going.
like 8,000 remakes. Um, but really, it just kind of comes down to the fact that in this business, it is a safer bet to remake something that you know at least has some name recognition than do something new. It's a business play. It's 100% a business play. Um, but not all remakes are bummers. Not all remakes are bad. You gotta like some remakes, right?
Yeah.
So Maggie, do you have any remakes that you like?
I was thinking about it this morning, and the first one that came to mind is that I do really like the remake of Fright Night that Colin Farrell was in a few years ago. I went to the cinemas to see that and enjoyed that immensely. And I had seen the original one when I was younger, and I thought that was quite fun. I'm also a big fan of any time that they take on an old concept and they don't do like a straight remake of it. So there was that Shia LaBeouf remake of Rear Window, Suburbia, that was really good. That I really enjoyed. Also saw that one in theater. So like I like inspired remakes that aren't like a one for one like redo of the first one. Um, and I don't like the most recent Star is Born remake. I really like Lady Gaga in it, but I prefer like the first two if I had to choose. So I don't know. It's a hit or miss, but I like when you take a story and try to give a slightly new spin to it, so it's not just a carbon copy.
See, I agree with you on that when it's like we're remaking an old film. But one of my favorite type of remakes, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I did a video for the Collider main channel about a movie called Silent House, which was a 2011. horror film starring Elizabeth Olsen, and it was a remake of, I believe it was a Spanish film.
Hmm.
And it was just one of those things where it was like, we're remaking it not because this other film is like old, but because it was like a foreign film and we want to adapt it for an American audience. We've seen that quite a few times
Yeah, that
in the
happens a lot.
past. And I appreciate when they do that because oftentimes, we'll be getting a film that we might not have seen otherwise. It's kind of backfired a couple of times. I'm not a big fan of Quarantine, for instance, which is a shot for
Mm.
shot remake of Wreck. Wreck is a lot better. But I do appreciate it when they do that. I think that that is one good use of remakes, personally. But
And hey, it
outside,
makes people go and watch the original, foreign language film, which, I'm always going to be an advocate for watching more foreign language films. So,
well, and that is what Quarantine actually did for me. Was that I remember I saw that when that came out, and I was like, man, that was fun, but I feel like that could be better. And somebody was like, well, you're in luck because the original was better. And I am now a big fan of that franchise. So all four of those Spanish films are fantastic. Um, I will say though that the Grudge remake, the first one with Sarah Michelle Gellar, not the remake, uh, is one of, still to this day, of the only movies that I ever walked out of.
oh wow.
Yeah. That being said, I like the original Grudge films. So
Well,
is what it is. But speaking of spooky R-rated films, that's the best segue that
and
I'm going
and
to do for
technically
this one.
kind of remake-ish.
Kind of rebootish. Blade is going to be rated R. That is confirmed by Marvel Studios. Uh, I feel like we kind of figured that was going to be the case with this film.
Yeah. I'm
I
still
don't
not
feel
convinced
like,
this film is happening, but
well, okay, yeah, there is that. It is if the movie even actually happens, because right now it seems to be in not a great spot. But I feel like this is something where Marvel is in some hot water right now, and they've been in hot water for a while, not just because of the Variety article or anything like that, but just things things aren't necessarily all peachy keen roses and sunshine, and so I'm kind of curious if something like Blade being rated R, Deadpool being rated R. That's them trying something new, and then you have the Marvel Spotlight stuff that Perry and I talked about yesterday. So you kind of got my opinion on that. If this is Marvel like throwing stuff at the wall to see if it sticks and see if it like brings audiences back who might have left the superhero genre, I don't know. What do you think of this?
I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean, we definitely know that there are a number of, comic books that warrant a more mature rating, and trying to adapt those and grow up with their audience was kind of inevitable. I think that they definitely, hopefully, maybe learned that people like more gritty, mature stories, Daredevil, Punisher, um, Defenders. Those did well on Netflix, and they were much more mature stories with much more mature, you know, violence and relationships and, et cetera. And so I hope that they're kind of looking to see what has done well and finding places to kind of utilize that going forward, because I do feel like they're definitely in a place where I don't want to call it an identity crisis, but it's almost like senioritis. Like they did really, really well. They're freshmen, they're sophomore, their junior year, and now they've hit their senior year and they don't know where they're going. They don't have any college plans. And they're up against a lot of different competition now, because you have things like The Boys, which handles a lot of superhero related stories in really fun ways, the same way that Invincible does. And they're ultra bloody, ultra violent, ultra, mature. And people love those shows. And now it's really hard for them to come back and watch things that are more lighthearted and fun and fluffy, when they've kind of now become trained to expect superheroes to take things a little bit more seriously. And I do obviously think the Blade warrants being mature and violent because it's vampires and killing creepy creatures. So it's interesting. I think it's a weird place for Marvel to be, and I hope they do well because I would love more mature stories and higher stakes, pun intended. And I love the original Blade, and I love the Blade comics. So
Yeah, and I think that right there is like, for me, the number one reason why it has to be R is
yeah,
because we did have previous Blade films, and so we know what a hard R Blade film looks like. And
and it was
I mean,
good.
I feel like I'm not going out on a limb. Like, I'm not saying anything too crazy when I point out that I feel like the original Blade was the best kickboxing vampire movie of 1998. Like, I feel like that's not a hot take that is gonna upset anyone, as there's
Yeah.
like another kickboxing vampire movie that came out in 1998. I don't know.
Gee, I
But
wonder what that could have been. Hmm.
I don't think that there is another one. But I actually quite enjoy the original Blade. I like Blade 2 actually a
Yeah.
little bit better.
Yeah,
Blade
it felt
2
like
is,
it built on a lot of the things that made the first Blade good and like did it a little bit better.
yeah. And then Blade Trinity was, moving on. Uh
Yeah. I mean, that was what's so funny is like I have a weird relationship with the MCU and kind of Marvel in general, but I do miss and long for the era when the Marvel characters were kind of split across a lot of different studios and a lot of different voices. And I like that period of time because it didn't feel as daunting for a lot of people. Like you could go enjoy the Blade movies and never watch another Marvel related movie ever again, and it like didn't impact your enjoyment in the same way that you could go watch all the X-Men movies and you didn't need to be watching what the MCU was starting to do with like the Hulk movies and stuff like that. And you could watch the Daredevil shows on Netflix and like that universe and not have to watch, Avengers Endgame. And so I do kind of miss that period of time. I think there, is obviously something to be said about having like a brand franchise synergy going on, but there's also something to be said about letting things have standalones. I mean, standalone comic runs are a thing naturally. You have
yeah.
a mainline comic run, and then you have some crazy stuff that's happening that sometimes is like an R-rated comic run. And you have some wild stuff happening. And I kind of miss that. And I think something like that could really benefit Marvel, where you have a little bit more freedom to just go absolutely wild.
Well, and I think that they could very much still do that within the confines of the MCU.
Oh yeah.
They just need to like, they need to remember, and I feel like I'm saying remember because they did this in like phases 1 and 2, where
Hmm.
they just need to remember that they can put out movies that are in the continuity of the MCU, but aren't so rigidly stuck to the main overarching plot of whatever
Hmm.
saga is going on. Like, we could get a Blade movie where the events of that movie do not factor into Secret Wars at all, and
Yeah.
all that movie does tie into Secret Wars is just introducing a character who pops up later. Like,
Yeah.
like it introduces Blade so that he can pop up in Secret Wars, but nothing that he's dealing with deals with the multiverse or deals with Kang or deals with anything like that. There's, no major connecting threads to like movies around it. It's just kind of like, maybe there's like a newspaper headline referencing like Spider-Man doing something or something,
Yeah.
and that's your MCU connection to know that it's in the same universe. But doesn't have to be
And
so
like
rigidly a part of it.
we kind of saw that recently with one of my favorite Marvel movies of like the last decade, which is Werewolf by Night, where that introduced like brand new characters from the comics, a brand new story, and was completely disconnected from everything that's going on in the Marvel multiverse. And it was standalone. There's room for it to gain legs and go walk into the multiverse if it needs to, but it can also just stand alone and be this thing that was like super epic. And I think that they need more things like that where there is a complete detachment from the rest of it. Because I think it helps people find enjoyment again and get interested in like where could this go without carrying like the burden of the past.
Yeah, I mean, like it's important to have those tentpole films that are building the overarching story, but that doesn't have to be every single piece. Like, just let us have standalone things, and hopefully Blade can be that. I feel
Yeah.
like if any film was going to be that, Blade would be.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
that's
know.
what I've been hoping, that it's something very similar to how like Werewolf by Night stood on its own, because it is supernatural. It's not exactly like superhero technically, but you know how that like kind of that realm of creepy people that Marvel has, that people forget that there's like vampires and werewolves and all sorts of various different creatures that
And
exist in the Marvel
Swamp
universe.
Things and
Something like there's so much fun stuff that exists that I
mammoths and
think
whatever.
really benefits
Yeah.
as like a its own thing basically. So I'm
Yeah,
fingers
and
crossed.
like I could see Blade connecting to Werewolf by Night, but
Yeah.
if it does connect, I don't think it needs to be like a
It'll be
major
like something
thing.
about the council. It'll be like a
Yeah.
one-off comment about the council or something. And that's the fun of it, where you have this freedom to go back and revisit it in different ways.
Yeah.
It isn't like
Or
this is a
maybe,
sequel.
Elsa Bloodstone shows up and is
Oh
like, "Hey,
yes.
what's up?" And we're just like, "All right, I know you. I'm gonna go slay some
We are
vampires over
pointing.
here." Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
do the point. Uh, cool. You're here. You said something to me. I'm gonna go deal with
Yeah.
this thing over here. Dracula's getting up to no good, or whoever winds up being the baddie. But I feel like Blade is gonna connect to the Eternals.
It has
It
to. I mean,
it's
unless
going
there's,
to.
it has to, because I feel bad for the Eternals. It just kind of exists over there. Lots of unanswered
Somebody at some
questions.
point is gonna talk about the hand sticking out of the ocean, right? Like that's gonna be a thing at some point.
I mean, it was concurrent with everything that was happening in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and nobody apparently knew. So I don't know.
Nobody like I think it got like an Easter egg shout out in I think She-Hulk.
Yeah.
At one point you see like a headline on her computer like off to the side. I think it says something about like something in the ocean. And that's it. That's the only recognition that the events of the Eternals has gotten from the larger MCU. It's a mess.
It's
Things
a
are
mess.
a problem.
I also really hope that we eventually go back to having Marvel movies where people aren't just waiting for a post-credit scene to tease what's ever coming next. Like I would love, as much as like it's fun to have a post-credit scene and it makes people sit and watch all the people, they're not actually watching.
They're not
That's not,
watching credits.
it doesn't
I'm on
actually
my
do
phone
anything.
surfing Twitter while those
Yeah.
credits are
I'm
going.
like, nobody's actually watching, but I would like to go back to watching movies and not just like waiting for a post-credit scene. Like I want to be able to focus on the here and now and not have to have, that like anticipation that is usually disappointing. Like there's been a few very disappointing post-credit scenes and I just don't think they're necessary anymore. I think we've got to a point where we can just be like, okay, that was the end of the movie. We'll come back in a year or so with a new movie. We're not even setting it up because who knows what's going to happen. Um
So here's the question that I have for you then, Maggie.
yes.
Since we've kind of been ragging on the MCU a little bit, we do
Yes,
have an MCU release coming up.
we do.
Uh, are you going to would let me I guess for you this question has to be phrased a little bit differently.
I feel like
Um
this is a setup.
just because the nature of our job. If you didn't have the job that we have, would you be going to go see the Marvels?
Maybe if I had time.
I think that's fair. Considering what we do for a living, are you going to go see the Marvels?
Maybe if I have time.
That's
It's
one of those
just
things where I feel like I have to see it.
yeah.
So,
Well, I think one of the things for us, especially like in our career field, it gets really complicated when we don't get early screenings because oftentimes our schedules don't like benefit going to specific screening times like when the movie's actually out because we're usually doing other things or like trying to play catch up with life duties. So it's hard when you don't have a screening for things ahead of time.
yeah. It's one of those things where I'm going to have to like try to shove it into my weekend somewhere.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. Anyways, enough ragging on the MCU. I feel like we've been a little
Hey, the
mean.
MCU knows what they can do to win me back fully. So,
A Zemo movie?
yes.
You're
There's
getting it.
many
It's
things
called
to do.
Thunderbolts.
He's not attached to it, so
If he's not in it, I'll be surprised.
He was not in the initial cast. He's not in the promo art, and has not been mentioned at all. So
It is
I am cautiously optimistic because I don't know how you can do the Thunderbolts without the leader of the Thunderbolts. As much as
not.
I love the idea of Bucky running them, he can't.
Yeah.
I don't think he would make a good leader of the Thunderbolts.
Doing a Thunderbolts movie without Zemo in it would be like doing a Justice League movie without Superman in it.
Right? It's the same principle.
So he's gonna be in it.
He has to.
He might not be main cast. Like, I feel like he'll show up and he'll be like a secondary or primary protagonist or antagonist. Sorry, but he'll be in it. I can almost guarantee it. I have faith he'll be in
Now
it.
that movie I will see in theaters multiple times if that's the case.
You and your Zemo love. Real quick before we move on to our third topic, just because I feel like talking about this, can we draw attention to the Christmas porg that you have behind
My Christmas
you?
porg. There's also a Christmas Ewok.
And the Christmas Ewok. What is the thing above it? It's been distracting me.
So this is Lise. This is one of the characters from the High Republic animated series, who happens to be named after one of the lovely PR people at Lucasfilm.
Oh, fantastic!
Yes.
That's why I don't recognize the characters, because I have not checked out any of the High Republic stuff, which is
it is excellent, and I highly recommend it to everybody.
I've been wanting to get into it, but at this point, I'm almost too afraid to ask where to start. So,
hey, I always recommend the comics. I think that's a great way, especially for people in our career field who already read comics quite often. I think they're a great way to jump into it, and some of the best storytelling that has come out of Star Wars in a long time.
Yeah. Okay, so our final topic for today is the Doctor Who Christmas special seems to be where we are going to get our next companion. The reason why a lot of people are thinking this is because the name of the episode. The episode title, which was announced just recently, is, let me see if I can pull it up, The Church on Ruby Road, which is like, that's a good episode title, but like, why does that make us think that we're going to get our companion? It's because the next companion, who is going to be played by Millie Gibson, is going to be named Ruby Sunday. So you have Ruby and Ruby.
Such a cool Doctor Who companion name.
That is I want a Doctor Who companion who's just named like Beth. Or like
Martha Jones is pretty common name.
Martha's pretty.
And Donna. I mean, except for Noble.
You got those two, but then like
Rose Tyler. Tyler's a pretty common last name.
But Rose isn't a very common first. I've never met anybody named Rose.
Really?
Never. Not a first name.
You need to get out more.
I guess so. But anyways, Ruby it feels like a Doctor Who name. You know what I mean? Like it has that energy, it has that vibe. But yeah,
that's the name of that episode title. The episode sounds like such a Doctor Who episode
on
title.
Ruby Road, yes, which will be Ncuti Gatwa's first Christmas special. I wonder if, because Doctor Who Christmas specials are often like some of the best episodes of the show, honestly.
And usually mostly devastating. Britain has this thing where if it's Christmas, everybody has to cry. Anybody who's watched Downton Abbey, Call the Midwife, Doctor Who knows that Christmas is for crying.
Yeah, because it was during Tennant's time, the space Titanic episode was a Christmas episode. And that was like
Kylie Minogue, with Kylie Minogue, right?
Yeah, and it was like for the entire episode, you're like, oh, she is 100% going to be a companion. And
there's that one really good, the Christmas one with oh God, was it Michael Gambon? It's one of the older actors. It's and the girl with the blonde hair. It's another blonde. I'm blanking on it. It was another Christmas special, and I sobbed the entire way through it.
I've seen them all, but I'm like completely spacing on most. And also, there's just a lot of Doctor Who episodes that feel Christmassy, and I'm like, is that a Christmas episode? Like the episode where we get the Doctor's final like night with River, I feel
Oh
like was
yeah.
a Christmas episode,
I think that was a Christmas special as well.
which I would hope so because that was soul crushing.
Yeah.
Um, but it could also just be general winter themed. Uh, but yeah, so the Doctor Who Christmas special is when it seems like we are going to be getting our next companion. So we'll just have to see. It would make sense because again, it is usually like a big deal and it is usually a big important episode. That being said,
Yeah.
it's surprising how many people I know who skip the Doctor Who Christmas specials.
Oh, that pains me greatly.
Yeah, I don't
Also,
know why you would choose to do that.
just while sitting here talking about the name of the episode and that the fact that her last name's Sunday and it's about a church is also very ironic.
I think that right there
I'm
is
Miss
your
Russell T
connecting.
Davies.
Yeah, I mean, he ain't slick.
He was
So
his episode titles were always so much fun, and I love the way that he's been like teasing all of this and like the emoji uses and all of that stuff. The second that he drops an emoji that has a rose involved, I will actually possibly combust. So
it's yeah. So before we go, let's address some of chat because I have kind of been ignoring it and I feel bad
oh
about it.
no.
Uh, Mr. G Movie says sports ball as a snide term needs to be banned.
I will say sports ball until the end of time. You will take it from my cold, dead hands.
I just felt like, somebody's calling out Maggie in chat. I figured we should put it
Go
in.
for it. You're not gonna get me.
Jeremy Miller thinks that the scarf on the porg is really cute. And there's quite a few people, several people have pointed out that we don't need, nor does anyone want another longest yard. That is actually quoted directly from Darb Tales, but quite a few people have shared his sentiment throughout. There were also quite a couple of people, actually it was just Jeremy Miller this whole time. Jeremy Miller posted several remakes that were good examples. Disturbia, Dread 2013, and The Departed are all remakes that are worth your time. Definitely on the Dread 2013. Although calling that a remake, I think, is a stretch. I would just call it an alternate adaptation of the Dread comics.
Mm,
The Departed, yeah, I often forget that The Departed is a
I
remake.
forgot that too. I forgot that too.
Yeah, but and before we go, something that I'm going to be pushing all month. Obviously, it is November, and November is a time of year where men will spend all month refraining from doing a certain thing. I will inform you now that it is not the one that you are thinking. It is No Shave November, not that other thing.
Oh
It
my
is No
god.
Shave November, and that is something that I personally take very, very seriously. So, and the reason for that is because it is meant to raise awareness about prostate cancer. So, I am going to, once I pull it up here, I'm going to drop a link into chat for the American Cancer Society, for a place for you to donate to help with cancer research. It is something where if you can donate, by all means. If you can't, just spread the word, spread some awareness, get it out there, and let's see if we can uh, get rid of cancer entirely, rid that evil blight from this planet. It is something that is personal to me. I've had several family members who have had prostate cancer, so I try to push it every single year. That's why I'm sorry, I'm gonna get worse looking because my beard grows in like kind of grossly. As you can see, this is not attractive. Like there's a reason why I'm single. Uh, but it'll fill out and then it'll look good. But so I'm gonna be scraggly all month, and that's why, because it is No Shave November. At least that's what I'm telling everybody. This is all just an elaborate ploy to make up for the fact that I don't want to shave. That's what this actually is.
You actually found it No Shave November for that exact reason.
Yes, I'm going to take total credit that I did that and not someone probably way smarter than me. But anyways, Tomorrow will be Maggie and I again, and we're going to be talking about quite a few exclusives the Collider has gotten. Uh, Different stuff coming down the pipeline. We're going to be talking about Enola Holmes 3. Chronicles of Narnia is getting a remake. We should have probably talked about that during remakes, but apparently, like, it slipped my mind. And so much more other stuff that you can get out there and you can check out. So be here tomorrow and give it a watch. But until tomorrow, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is. And we'll see you tomorrow.